Nelson Mandela was a South African anti-apartheid, revolutionary, politician, and a philanthropist. Nelson Mandela was born on July 18, 1918, in the village of Maviso, Transkei. His mother was Nankwafi Nosekni, and his father was Godla Henry Mafakani Izwa. As a child, Mandela would hear elders telling stories of his ancestors' valor during the wars of resistance. He, too, dreamed of making his own contribution to the freedom struggle of his people. Nelson Mandela's first name wasn't always Nelson. As a child, he attended a primary school in Kunu where his teacher gave him the name Nelson in accordance with the custom to give all children Christian names. In 1939, he went on to college looking to get a Bachelor of Arts degree at the University College of Fort Hare. Unfortunately, he didn't complete the degree there as he had been expelled for joining in a student protest. He completed his bachelor's degree through the University of South Africa and graduated in 1943. Nelson Mandela was increasingly becoming more politically involved in 1942. He joined the African National Congress in 1944 and helped form the African National Congress Youth League, or the ANCYL. The ANCYL was established by Anton Lambede, Nelson Mandela, Walter Sisulu, and Oliver Tambo. The aim of the ANCYL was to get the youth to step up to the fight against segregation within the country. In 1952, he was chosen to be National Volunteer-in-Chief of the Defiance Campaign. This campaign was against apartheid laws. This campaign was the first large-scale multiracial defiance against apartheid laws. More than 8,000 volunteers during this campaign went to jail for defying unjust laws. These volunteers were jailed for violating the curfews on Africans and entering public locations designated for one race only. In 1944, Mandela married Evelyn Mace, and they had 3 children. Unfortunately, in 1957, they divorced and the children stayed with her. In June 1955, the ANC creates the Congress of the People, representing members of all races to develop a new set of principles for South Africa. They also established the Freedom Charter, which supports the abolition of racial discrimination and oppression. In December 1956, Mandela and 150 other people are tried for high treason. In June 1958, Mandela meets Winnie Madikizela, and they have 2 children. In 1996, they divorce, and the children stay with her. In 1959, Parliament passes the Promotion of Bantu Self-Government Act, which forces the resettlement of blacks into 8 separate tribal homelands. From April 1959 to March 21, 1960, the ANC, along with other anti-apartheid groups, protest the Bantu Self-Government Act. And on March 21, 1960, the government declares a state of emergency and bans the ANC and other opposition groups. Finally, in March 1961, the treason trial comes to an end and Nelson Mandela is found not guilty. On January 11, 1962, Mandela used the adopted name, David Matsume, to secretly leave South Africa. He traveled around Africa and visited England to gain support for the armed struggle. He received military training in Morocco and Ethiopia and returned to South Africa in July 1962. When Mandela returned, he was arrested at a police roadblock. He was charged with leaving the country without a permit and inciting workers to strike. He was sentenced to 5 years imprisonment. Within a month of his imprisonment, police raided a secret hideout used by the ANC, and several of his comrades were arrested. On October 9, 1963, Nelson Mandela joined 10 others on a trial for sabotage. While facing the penalty of life imprisonment or death, his words to the court at the end of his famous speech from the docks on April 20, 1963, became immortalized.
I have fought against white domination, and I have fought against black domination. I have cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society in which all persons will live together in harmony and with equal opportunities. It is an idea for which I hope to live for and to see realized. But my Lord, if it needs be, it is an ideal for which I am prepared to die.
Nelson Mandela and the 10 other accused were sentenced to life imprisonment. The conditions at the prison were terrible. Each person had a single cell that was a 7-foot square with a slop bucket. Some inmates were forced to wear improper clothing, such as children's clothing. While Mandela was serving out his sentence, he further educated himself and other inmates. By day, he worked in a limestone quarry, crushing rock, and by night he wrote his autobiography, which was later published as A Long Walk to Freedom. Nelson Mandela's mother and eldest son died while he was in prison. He was not allowed to attend their funerals. Nelson Mandela was inspired by the poem Invictus by William Henley and had it written on a scrap of paper on his prison cell. After serving 27 years of a life sentence, he was released from prison on February 11, 1990. Unfortunately, while serving his 27 years, he was diagnosed with tuberculosis. After being released from prison, he voted in a local government election for the first time in his life. Nelson Mandela was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1993 for his peaceful termination of the apartheid laws and for laying down the foundation of a democratic society. On May 10, 1994, Nelson Mandela became South Africa's first democratically elected black president. As promised, he resigned after serving one term. He died at his home on December 5, 2013, at the age of 95.